All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our April monthly membership meeting. We do kind of focus a little bit more on the online program during these meetings, but I do have a bit of information about in-person programming as well. First step is that April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. So in case you didn't know, you are likely going to see and hear more things happening this month than even other months. Although, like, kind of our joke around here is like every month is Parkinson's Awareness Month when you have Parkinson's. So it's totally up to you. You may choose to live your life the same way you normally do. But in April, there often are some extra educational meetings and events and walks and rides and things like that. So if you're interested in participating, you can. And yeah, there just may be more to do if you want to do those things. We can't think. We do have an event coming up at the end of the month. Thursday, April 11th is World Parkinson's Day. And the past couple of years, there's been kind of a worldwide sit to stand challenge. We participated in it last year. And basically it meant that we did as many sit to stands as we could that day to, and then post about it, maybe post on social media or share it with friends and family, ask them to do a bunch. It's good because it's something that's active and it's good for us to do. And then it kind of is something that can catch on and we can have other people participate as well. And just a good opportunity to spread awareness about what Parkinson's is. The more that the general public understands what Parkinson's is, the more people may reach out to a neurologist, because there's probably a lot of people who are not diagnosed walking around who have Parkinson's. And the sooner they can access a diagnosis and treatment, they're going to do better over the long term. And then we just want everyone to really be more understanding of what Parkinson's is. And a lot of people have a very kind of specific thought in their mind of, an older male who has more flexed posture. And that is just really an old school perspective of what Parkinson's is. And we want to help change kind of the narrative and help people understand the range in ages that are true for people with Parkinson's, and that many more women than they may realize are diagnosed, and kind of the range in symptoms that people can experience. And this just can make the world a better, more accepting and caring place. So we'll see if there are other things that we do throughout the month, but it's kind of the main thing right now. And we'll do maybe some extra sit to stands leading up to it, so we're in good shape. And then that day we'll do lots of in class, in person, online. We'll probably try to add up kind of how many we did and how many people were participating, because then I forget the organization, but there's an organization who's kind of keeping a tally. And so we submit to them and say, we did 1,800 sit to stands today between all the people and all the reps we did. And then the goal is for them to reach maybe like 1 million or something that day with all the people who are participating. And so there's things, getting posted and spread on social media that helps get everyone's attention. Our next monthly meeting, so you can put it in your calendar if you want to, is Monday, May 6th. I am pretty excited to have the meeting today on the 1st. I don't think we've ever had a Monday be the first day of the month before. Feels very civilized and organized. I wish more months could be like that. But next month, it'll be May 6th, same time, same place. Our exercise of the month for April is going to be supine bicycles. So supine means we're lying on our back. Bicycles is where we lift up our legs in the air and we're pedaling. So it's a core exercise. We picked it because here locally, we do have the SoCal Ride and Walk coming up. And so it's just kind of fun to have it be bicycle, even though you don't have to be on a bicycle to pretend or to move your legs in that way. So hang on one second. Remember, Mom, she's doing a makeup. Remember? Yeah. Cardio. Sorry. We got somebody coming in for a makeup, just making sure they know where to go. So yeah, supine bicycles is going to be a good challenge, a great core workout. And basically we'll start kind of with less and we will build up our endurance over time. So we're doing more repetitions and more bicycling by the end of the month. I have a video for it and that'll go on the website as well. Maddie already recorded it. So in case you want to watch to kind of get the intro, we'll have that video available. And then of course we'll be doing the introduction in classes, especially this week, and every week we'll say, hey, if this is the first time you've done it, this is what we're doing. All right, this month's in-person meetings, we have now 3 support groups that we're running. And I've mentioned for those of you who are online, there are some options for online support groups. I actually just met a new therapist who was really wonderful, and she runs some online support groups. So this is something, if you're interested in an online support group, definitely let me know, and I can let you know what resources exist. And that may be something that we add to our Rogue kind of calendar and something that we include. We often like to start with things in person and then kind of figure out how to have them go as well as possible and then start them online also. So we just started our in-person support groups last month. We've had requests for a while, but I really wanted to have a group that wasn't just me leading, a group of us getting together. So it kind of, I had to wait for having the right person to lead and facilitate this group. We have a woman named Darlene Mann, who is a social worker, semi-retired. She's not working full-time anymore in employment, but she basically, when she retired from full-time work, started her own kind of consulting company and works with people on the transitions of life. So when maybe a transition is receiving a diagnosis that causes you to reevaluate and make some changes, or other opportunities when our lives may change over time. So she has a background leading groups, working as a social worker. Her sister was diagnosed with Parkinson's in her 20s, actually. So she has direct familial experience, although I do think that, because Darlene's probably in her 60s, so that means it was probably 40 years ago. So things were different then. And I know that Darlene, seeing kind of what we have here, thinks it's so great and, you know, really wishes that her sister had had something like this, because I think that really could have improved her life. So she's leading the support groups. We have one that is for people with Parkinson's. We have one that is for spouses of people with Parkinson's. And then we have one that is combined. People with Parkinson's, spouses, people can come together, people can come individually. But it really seems like kind of having those separate groups is beneficial, and everybody has an opportunity to talk, and then we can all come together. So those are happening on Tuesdays. On Friday the 12th, we have our in-person women's group. Dr. Nita Chen and Dr. Janet Lee will join us. Dr. Nita Chen is a movement disorders neurologist, and Janet is her colleague who is internal medicine. And when we initially started this women's group last year in March, I think it was, I don't think it wasn't longer than that ago, but it kind of feels like it's been happening more than a year. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Anyways, there was an article talking about the controversies and gaps for women with Parkinson's and how things are different, what the experience is. And we had a lot of questions that were kind of medical. So I'm very excited for Dr. Chen and Dr. Lee to join us to talk about, like, you know, for women, what is a symptom of menopause versus what is Parkinson's? There are some things that can kind of overlap, like hot flashes and temperature sensitivity and brain fog and some other symptoms. So being able to kind of figure out what's what and what treatment's going to help. I will definitely ask if they are available to join the online women's group as well, and be able to kind of come and answer questions and have the same discussion too, if you're all interested. So I'll have Julia talk to the online women's group this month. And if you guys are interested, then we'll ask Dr. Chen and Lee to join for that as well. Our educational meeting this month, so we do an online educational meeting and an in-person. My goal is to have it be the same topic, where we do one in person and one online. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's different. This month we have Belinda Stewart Berger, who is a nurse navigator at Hoag Hospital, one of our local hospitals. They have a great movement disorders program, and she is going to come. We're going to talk about improving the hospital experience. We're going to have an in-person meeting, and then she's also going to join us online, just on Zoom. I'm going to do them as two separate meetings. I think that's best whenever possible, as opposed to trying to do them together. So she'll be coming in person here to Rogue on Wednesday, the 17th, and then online on a Monday, the 22nd. So when it comes to hospitalizations for people with Parkinson's, it can be tricky because medications are often given and scheduled for people with Parkinson's in a very specific way based on what helps you feel your best. And in a hospital, medications are often given with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or morning and evening, and not necessarily on as much of a set schedule. When it comes to medications with Parkinson's, we really want them on an empty stomach. We don't want them with meals. And we need to make sure that the person gets the opportunity to be on the same schedule that they usually are, and that they're getting the correct medications. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with a hospitalization. And, you know, sometimes a hospitalization can happen by accident, you have a fall or you get sick and something happens and you have to go into the hospital. Hospitalizations can also happen for something planned, like an orthopedic surgery. So we want people to be aware of what they can do so that if a hospitalization happens, whether planned or unplanned, it can go as smoothly as possible and you can get out of that hospital as fast as possible. So there's been a lot of work in this area, kind of research done to identify what are the most common problems. And so these are things that if you're aware of them and you've gathered some resources, then if you do have a planned surgery, you can make sure to plan things so that it goes as smoothly as possible. And if something, does happen that causes an unplanned hospitalization, we want to make sure that you have things like your medications very clearly written out on paper in something like your wallet or purse. Having something on your phone is good if you are available to open your phone and show it to people. But if you were incapacitated, if you had been in a car accident and you couldn't show what was on your phone, then we really need there to be another place where that information is. So these are the kinds of things we're going to talk about, what to be aware of and how to best plan. It's also, there are certain medications that you should not take if you have Parkinson's because they actually can block dopamine. So some medications for like nausea can actually block dopamine. So there are medications that you want to make sure that no one ever gives you or that you don't take. There's some really handy resources and lists that you can have yourself that you could hand out if you were going to have a procedure or something, and to make sure as people, as a professional or as someone with Parkinson's, where this is something that we see every day and we understand that there's, specifics that are important. You would think that all healthcare professionals would understand these specifics, but that is not true. A GI doctor really knows the gastrointestinal system, and they don't necessarily know that much about Parkinson's. And so even something like going in to get a colonoscopy is something where it's good to let the doctor know this is what's going on. And, when it comes to medications and stuff, sometimes it may be that you really can't take medications for a period of time. Sometimes it's okay to take medications with water and that's it, but nothing else. So there's just a lot of things like that you want to talk through so that you have the best possible experience. And of course, our goal is for you to avoid ever being in the hospital at all. But just realistically, in the human experience, it's probably going to be hard to avoid it 100%. So we want to plan to make sure that it is successful and you get out of there fast. In April, we don't have any holiday closures. There are no days that we're going to be closed. For our online meetings, we have our women's group, and that'll be on Wednesday, April 10th at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. And like I said, I'll talk to Julia to talk to the group about, do we want to invite Dr. Chen to join to talk about some of those differences with women and how should they be monitored and addressed. And then on Monday, it'll be, Monday, April 22nd, will be our educational meeting with Belinda online. So that will be just on Zoom. She'll join, probably have a few slides. We'll have resources to share, and then we can have some discussion and asking questions as it's helpful. So that will be coming up on the 22nd. Staffing updates. So many of you may have heard by now, if you've taken classes with Julia recently, that Julia will be leaving Rogue. We'll miss her very much. She's doing a residency program, which is very exciting. So we're excited for her to have this opportunity. And if she's going to leave, it's a good reason to leave Rogue. So she will be with us through the end of May. So there'll be lots of time to exercise with her between now and then. And then the cool thing with online is that we have literally hundreds of classes probably with her. So if you ever miss Julia, you can go in and do a recording with her and get your Julia fix. Her energy is so infectious. So, just so that everybody knows, with her leaving, we actually were in a position between the rest of us staffed here that we can pretty much absorb her classes and what she was doing. So that was my initial plan. I was going to take over her Thursday online classes and some of her in-person classes. And then everybody else kind of got to take on a couple new things. But we also then recently actually had a physical therapist who has contacted us and is interested in working with us. It's very early in discussions. She came last week to spend the morning with us and kind of see what it's like here, because it's such a different setting than what most PTs have experienced in kind of typical work. So she came to visit. She's interested in working with us. So we're going to kind of iron out the details and see if that's a good fit. If she were to join the team, she would be joining in June, and we'd have a couple months of training, me training with her. So she probably wouldn't start teaching online immediately, but we'd get her trained up, and then she would likely take over the Thursday online classes. So that's a TBD. It might end up being, she may not join the team, or she might, but I just wanted to keep you all updated that, you know, we're prepared to continue with the classes that Julia has been teaching. So there should be, you know, very minimal changes, if any at all. But when someone does leave, it does give us the opportunity to shift some things around or make some changes. So it's a time, you know, over the next 2 months, I'm definitely open to ideas, feedback, if there's things you'd like to see, things for us to change a little bit. The last kind of major changes we made with online classes was moving some classes earlier, starting, that was back in like November, I think that we started that. So that has been going well. It definitely seems, I know, especially for those of you on the East Coast or east of us, it's nice to have classes earlier in the morning and not start in the afternoon. So we're definitely happy, and that's been working out well for us here. Also, we have some people who like to get up early and come in and beat traffic and have get done earlier in the day. So that's all working well, but, you know, we may, look a little bit at shifting other things. One is, with this research article, I want to see if there's anything we learned from that would make us tweak our classes a little bit to really try to reach that high intensity as much as possible. So I'm definitely open to feedback. If you have suggestions for any adjustments in classes or types of classes that you would like to try, let me know. This exciting research we talked a little bit about before I started the recording today. And this study came out just at the beginning of March. Intense exercise increases dopamine transporter and neuromelanin concentrations in the substantia nigra and Parkinson's disease. So this was very exciting because it looks like type of exercise that is quite accessible and similar to what we're doing already. And they actually showed exercise reversed the expected decrease in dopamine transporter availability, and exercise also reversed the expected decrease in neuromelanin concentration in the substantia nigra into a significant increase. So really just showing how powerful exercise can be. There is no treatment right now, medication, vaccine, injections, DBS. There's no treatment out there that has ever shown a reversal in these changes in the brain. So exercise is really the first thing to show these kinds of changes. And on one hand, that may not be exciting because it would be nice if there was a pill you could pop or some passive treatment to, give these kinds of benefits. But hopefully it is exciting that it is something that you can do and take charge in and actually improve how your brain is functioning. So it's very exciting. We're going to, in terms of covering this, our student Michaela did do a presentation on Friday on HIIT training, high intensity interval training. She has a background in cardiac rehab as an exercise physiologist. And so she has a lot of experience kind of developing HIIT programs for people, and talked about the research of why they may be more beneficial than kind of steady state exercise, and how you may be able to get more benefit in a shorter amount of time, which is something we're always, trying to be as efficient with time as possible. So her presentation was about HIIT overall. She included some discussion about this article and some of the details that were in it, but I am going to do even a little bit of a deeper dive into the information from this article. So I just have to have a chance to read the whole thing closely. So it'll probably be that we have a little bonus meeting on this topic, maybe this month. I'm trying not to get ahead of myself, but there may also be some other research that I would like to share. So it might be that we have kind of a exercise and research update this month that I schedule, where we could go into more detail in this research, really know, more details about what changed and improved, and talk a little bit more about the details of what they were doing for exercise. So you can see, how close is what I'm doing to what was happening in this exercise study. But I would definitely recommend checking out Michaela's presentation from Friday. That'll be a great intro. And then we'll talk even more in depth about this study pretty soon. The other exciting thing about this article is that it is open access. A lot of research is published in a way where it's, published in a journal. And unless you are a subscriber to that journal, you can't see the article for free. Articles can cost like $30 to $40 just to buy one article. And I don't think, any of us thinks that that makes sense to spend that much money on one article to read. So it's cool that this one is actually open access. So you can just put in the title of this paper and it'll pull it up on Google, and then it'll say download PDF, and you can download it if you want to read the details. Some people, I know some of our members are really into reading the research, and some people are not into reading the research, and that is totally okay. It's kind of dense and sometimes hard to understand. But if you are into it, you have access and could read the whole thing yourself. So yeah, we'll get into more depth soon though, more details. All right, future educational meetings. So Dr. Catherine Long Gardner is a neurologist down in San Diego. She was supposed to join us in April, but she needed to reschedule. So she's going to join us in June now. She is going to be talking about low blood pressure and orthostatic hypotension. They are doing some research studies down there looking at being able to monitor blood pressure more continuously, which would be very helpful to see kind of where people are at and how often it's low, how often it's high, how much of the time it's in the middle, how low does it actually go. So I'm excited for her to come in and just talk about this as, a topic for anyone that it's relevant for. And then they also have opportunity to participate in research studies at UCSD. So that is something that anyone, especially if you're local, but there are some opportunities sometimes to participate even from a distance, or they may be one site and there may be multiple sites around the country. So if low blood pressure is something you experience, you may find out about a study that even has a site in your area as well. So I'm very excited for this topic. And so in May, I had contacted another of our local neurologists, Dr. Thakar. He presented at another meeting a while back about new treatments in the pipeline. So I'm going to reach back out to him, see if he's still available for May. And if so, we'll probably cover that new treatments in the pipeline topic. Otherwise, if for some reason he's not available, we'll schedule him later and we'll decide what we're going to do for May. I have a few things that I want to cover. One, I still want to cover bone health. I likely will be using Dr. Greger's new book. Many of you are familiar with Dr. Greger. He is a doctor who specializes in nutrition research, and he wrote a book called How Not to Die was his first one. His most recent one is How Not to Age. And he has a whole section in here about preserving bone health. There's some really interesting information, and he discusses kind of medications, exercise, dietary factors, multiple things. So that would probably be a template that I would use to talk about bone health, because I think that's a topic that if I just get organized, that's a topic that I could cover. Service dogs has been on our request list for a while, and I'm excited to say I have a lead for that. So PMD Alliance is an organization that does online meetings. They do great work. And I saw recently that they had a woman and her father on to present about service dogs. So she works with an organization that trains service dogs, and she talked about it from a professional perspective, but her father has had Parkinson's for 20 years and utilizes a service dog. And so both of their perspectives together would be awesome. So I have emailed them to find out if they'd be able to join us for a presentation. So we're making moves on that. Dystonia and dyskinesia is one that I can ask Dr. Chen about joining. I think that she would be available. Stem cells, we have Dr. Claire Henchcliffe is a movement disorders neurologist in our area at University of California, Irvine, UCI. She just had a big breakthrough study that I believe was a phase 2. And so she has been presenting at professional meetings quite a bit. And they have, I believe, more than one stem cell study happening at UCI right now. And so she's a very busy lady, but I am hoping to have her come on and present what is kind of, the current science in Parkinson's with stem cells. Stem cells are very complicated. That's why, although there's been research happening for a while, it's still in progress. And, for her to explain what research is happening and where we need to get to before this is really a viable treatment for people, and talk a little bit about why the stem cell treatment that is currently available, because there certainly are places you can go and they will do stem cell treatment, why that doesn't really have the research to support its use currently. Because there definitely are places that are offering this as a treatment, and it just doesn't have research to back it up and is unlikely to be beneficial. and can potentially be harmful and is an expensive treatment. So this is something we want to help all of you navigate. Of all the options out there, what are things that really are promising? But, being able to kind of be wary of things that may not be appropriate and may be very expensive and not helpful. So I want her to cover that topic as well. So she's one who I'm hoping to get sometime soon. And then neuropsychology. So we have had a couple meetings on mental health. We had, now I'm just blanking on his name, Kimball Magoni. We had Kimball Magoni, a therapist who has Parkinson's, present on kind of building resiliency. That was a wonderful presentation, I think just in January. It wasn't very long ago. So that's a great one in the video library if you haven't watched it. Our student last year, Melanie, presented on mental health as well. But we have not had a neuropsychologist on. And neuropsychologists are psychologists who do additional training. They have their PhD and then they do a fellowship in neuropsychology, which is kind of a next level of training and really understanding how neurologic diagnoses affect mood and vice versa, and how there also can be changes in cognition or other areas that all kind of are intertwined. And so it can become very complex. So I just met a neuropsychologist. Most neuropsychologists do neuropsych testing. So that is very comprehensive cognitive testing that can happen. It takes hours, like 6 hours to do, very in-depth, looking at all different areas of cognition. This is a type of testing that you can do if you'd like to have more information about your cognition. It's often required if someone's considering DBS because it can help guide treatment recommendations and decisions. And this Kelsey is the neuropsychologist that I just met. She actually has chosen to practice as a clinical psychologist. So she is working with people. She runs support groups online, and then she works with people online in, a therapeutic relationship to help people work through the stress that can come up and anxiety that can be related to Parkinson's. But she just has this really extensive training and background to understand the multitude of factors that impact someone. Whereas a general kind of therapist or psychologist out there may not have the full depth of understanding of how Parkinson's impacts the systems. So I just met her. She seemed really wonderful. And I asked her if she would come on and do a couple meetings for us, one in person, one online. So we're looking, that's something that could potentially happen in May. Or if not, we'll probably look at July for that. But she was really great. And I think she can present on neuropsychological testing to understand a little bit more about what that is, excuse me, and when it's appropriate. And then also kind of how she works with people in a therapeutic relationship, and what are some of the best and most important instances where you might want to work with someone. So those are the topics that I have for the future. Are there any other topics that anyone would like me to put on the list? You can either tell me now, or I'm almost done with slides, and then we'll get to our discussion part of the meeting. Did someone have one?
I do. I would think it would be really neat if we could hear a neuro-ophthalmologist. I finally got an appointment with one, but like in my area, it's almost a year out. And so I am going into Philadelphia where it was only 6 or 7 months out. But I know people talk about visual changes, and I'm kind of interested to know what could be Parkinson's and what is not Parkinson's, and what they do when you go. And I think that'd be great.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And this came up recently talking to people. So I know that we do have a couple in our area. They are somewhat hard to find. I think they're often in major medical centers, university centers. They're not necessarily just out in the community, easy to get to. But yeah, when it comes to vision, it's very helpful because an ophthalmologist is really a specialist in the eyes, like the eyeballs. Whereas when it comes to Parkinson's and neurologic conditions, our eye health and kind of physically what's going on and physiologically going on with our eyes is important, but also our brain is very relevant in how, what we see is all because it's being processed in our brain. So in some cases, your eyes can be totally fine, no changes there, but you can still have a change in vision. And that may have more to do with how the brain is processing information. So yeah, I agree. That would be a great speaker. Thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else? All right, we'll continue then. So this weekend, I have the Team Fox MVP Awards coming up. I don't know if anybody else might be there for this, but if you are going to be there, let me know. It's April 5th through 7th in New York. This will be my second time going. I went last year and it was a really wonderful experience. So I decided I really want to try to make it any year that I get invited. The people who are invited are people who fundraise a certain amount throughout the year. So I have gotten to go because of our participation in Jimmy Choi's Move in November fundraiser. So we participated for a few years, and our team has really been very generous in their donations. And since people are donating through our Rogue team, then I get to go as a representative. And for people who make large donations, they also are invited as individuals as well if they would like to attend. And then we also have the SoCal ride here in Orange County that I'm involved in as well. So I got to go for the first time last year. They usually on Friday evening have some type of kind of networking and social event to get to meet some people. Last year, we got to see a screening of Michael J. Fox's documentary Still, which is really beautiful. If you haven't watched that yet, I do highly recommend it. It is really interesting. You know, Michael J. Fox has had Parkinson's a long time. So that is an important consideration. And I'd say most of us who watched it through the lens of exercise and therapy really feel like he could have better exercise and therapy in his life. Who knows? I don't know for sure what actually is happening, but the little snippets that they showed in the documentary were like, oh, it could be better than that. There was no discussion of aerobic exercise. You know, he wasn't getting challenged very hard. He wasn't getting into different positions. So maybe someday we'll have the opportunity to work with him. But just watching that documentary, it was really beautiful documentary. On Saturday morning, there's a research roundtable. And last year, that's where they announced more details about the biomarker that was developed. So this year, I'm very excited. The other research studies research that they highlighted was super interesting as well. And really, I just did not get a chance to follow up. Let me just drink a little bit. I had a cold last week that clearly I'm not completely over yet. So the research roundtable, they bring in researchers to kind of explain the work that they were doing. And last year, there was a really interesting researcher where they were looking at this very small device that you wear kind of on your chest to your neck, and it monitored swallowing. So what they were seeing is in people newly diagnosed with Parkinson's that the frequency of swallowing was much less than in the healthy control. And so that is relevant for many things. But one thing they talked about is weakness that can happen with the swallowing muscles that, it's not, Parkinson's does not cause weakness directly, but if you're swallowing less frequently, if just your automatic movement isn't happening as often, weakness can be a secondary result of using those muscles less. So this really is just exciting because I think it really supports the idea that we have of getting started early with speech therapy and really training and keeping your voice strong and your swallow function strong, that if you really keep using those muscles, you can keep them strong throughout your life. And they had a little haptic cue with it where it would, I think it was a very slight vibration or something. And they found that really cued people to swallow more often. So even when they weren't thinking about it and could kind of be completely doing something else, they were still getting some input that helped them actually swallow more often. So things like this, it's not, some of the research that's being funded is not just finding the cure, but it's finding other, really helpful treatments. And I meant to follow up with that organization to find out, what was going on and what the research was. So I may still do that. But I'm excited to see what research is discussed this year. And so that's where, when I get back from this, I'll make sure to share any interesting research that I learn about there to let people know, either if it's just an exciting development, or in some cases, there may be the potential to participate in a research study. So we get to meet amazing people from all around the country and hear from them. There's a New England bike ride that started, I think, a little over 10 years ago by the mother of someone who has Parkinson's. He was maybe in his 40s or 50s when he was diagnosed, and his mom, who was probably in her 70s or 80s, was like, this whole Parkinson's thing, this is unacceptable. I'm going to, start an event. I'm going to raise money and help find the cure for my son. And this ride over about 10 years has grown to the point where last year they raised $1 million for this one-day event, a whole $1 million. So they have raised, I think, over $10 million. Well, maybe not that much. Maybe it was like $5 million over all the years. But anyways, a lot of money. So raised a lot of money, helped support a lot of research. So it's really cool to meet people like that and hear how they got started, how they grew, and just so many people who are so motivated to find the cure because they care about people who have Parkinson's. So really wonderful event. I'm going to be heading there Thursday night, so I won't be here on Friday, but I'll be back next week. And then, so finally, the opportunity for you to join us in some way is an annual event that will be coming up at the end of the month. Saturday, April 27th is the SoCal Ride and Walk for Parkinson's in Irvine, California. So this is the website, socalride.net. This ride was started by one of our members' husband. So same thing, he retired and wanted to make a difference and cares a lot about his wife. And he's a cyclist. There was no bike ride in Orange County. I don't even think there's a cycling event in LA or San Diego either. There's one in Northern California that has raised a lot of funds. So he had gone and attended that ride and was like, okay, we need one of these in Southern California too. So he started in 2018 and there were like 60 riders. They raised $6,000. And in 6 years, as of last year, there were 450 participants and they raised over $100,000. So we are looking to make this ride the best and biggest one it's ever been. I'm on the board of this ride now because basically after going to the Team Fox event last year, I just felt even more excited and motivated to help raise funds for the Michael J. Fox Foundation and find the cure, and just really feeling like things are happening and moving in the right direction and I want to be involved. So I'm on the board now for the ride. So you can join, if you're local, you can join our team and come out with us if at all possible. So it is a ride, and you can, if you like riding bikes, there are 3 distances that you can do for bike rides. If you prefer to walk and talk and hang out with your friends, there's also a walk that is up to a 3-mile walk. It's an out and back, so you can walk as far as you want to. It's on a protected path, not on the road. So it's it's really beautiful walk. The weather's usually pretty good at this time of year, hasn't gotten too hot yet. And we don't have the cold winter weather that we've been having recently. We had some rain this weekend. So if you're local, I'd love for you to attend. If you're not local, you can join us virtually. So if you go to the website, you can register virtually and you can still join our team. So you can be a part of our team virtually. And on the day of the event, you can go for a walk or a ride or do one of our classes or do something and kind of participate virtually. If you don't want to participate virtually, but you are interested in donating, this is the ride is a 501c3 and 100% of registration fees and donations go directly to the Michael J. Fox Foundation through Team Fox. So Team Fox is the community grassroots kind of section of the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And with Team Fox events, 100% of money raised goes directly to research. There is no percentage that goes to overhead or administrative fees. So if you like making donations throughout the year, or it helps you when it comes to tax time, definitely please consider donating to support our team and the ride. We're really looking to break the record of what we were able to raise last year and have it just be even bigger and better. So socalride.net is the best site to go to. And I will also put the link in our daily email to this. This link goes directly to our team to make a donation. To register, you have to go through the main site. And then as you're registering, there's a place at the top to write in the team name. And at the bottom, there's a drop down. So you want to select the drop down to join Team Rogue. So I just want you all to know about it. And it would be great for anyone to participate. Billy is coming out from Texas for this. She does have kind of a reason. Her sister lives out here, so she's visiting her sister also. But anybody, if you ever want to come out, whether it's this year or in the future, this is a really kind of good time of year to come out. And maybe it's something that we start doing a little exercise intensive or something the week before or after this event, in case anybody else wants to travel from out of town. All right, so that was a lot. There was a lot going on this month. But now I have time to answer any questions. I don't think I have something scheduled. Oh yeah, we got 10 minutes. Hopefully that'll be plenty of time. So I will stop the share. And Diane, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
The organization that did the online activity for HIT, I was on their website. I think they have like a 14-day free trial that you can look at their program if you guys want to evaluate for part of what you're going to look at to compare what we do with what they do.
Yeah, we were planning. I don't know. Yeah, I feel a little awkward signing up myself. But we were figuring we are gonna try to get somebody to sign up so that we could get some intel on the classes and how they may be similar or different, and yeah, get any other ideas. So if anybody does sign up to check it out, let me know. Otherwise, we'll probably do that to get a little bit more information too. I've gone to their website, and for one, I'm really kind of amazed how many classes they have. I feel like they have quite a few classes a day. Theirs are definitely more spread out. I think they have more different instructors, maybe teaching from different places or something, but it seems like they have some early and some that are more like actual evening classes, which is great for people who are working. So yeah, it was cool because I was not familiar with that organization previously. And it's great to, yeah, get more familiar with them. And I think Janice even had mentioned that there was one of the in-person ones. It was kind of far from her. It was like close to an hour away. So it wasn't really easy to get to, maybe to participate in person. But I encouraged her, if it was at all possible to go and check it out in person. And then, yeah, they clearly have a lot of things online as well, too. And their program was started by a woman who has Parkinson's, and she's now 15 years into being diagnosed and appears to be doing remarkably well. So another example of, what is possible when you really take exercise on as a major focus. So yeah, I definitely want to learn more from, and see what they're doing and hopefully connect with them more too.
Claire, I was a little bit late to the session. I'm not sure what y'all are talking about.
So we are talking about a research study. I'll share my slides again here. A research study that came out at the beginning of March. I've shared it I've shared a link to it in our emails a couple times, but I know there's no way to see everything that happens in all the emails every day. But this research article was published beginning of March. It's super exciting because they showed, it was in a small group of people. It was only 10 people, but they showed that intense exercise increased dopamine transporter and neuromelanin concentrations. So under normal circumstances, someone with Parkinson's, if you image their brain and look at these things over a 6-month time period, there is a small percentage of negative change. And what they saw when people were doing high intensity exercise is they actually saw a positive change and a reversal of the degeneration that would otherwise be happening with Parkinson's. So another study really showing that exercise as of now is the treatment that actually can maybe not even just slow Parkinson's progression, but maybe actually induce a reversal in those symptoms. And this is something that, I totally believe is possible. We see these kinds of positive changes in people all the time. But this is a different way of looking at it. When we're talking about people getting better, we're usually talking about movement and balance and kind of motor symptoms and things that we can measure and see and that people feel. But this is actually looking in the brain at specific things that are relevant to Parkinson's. So we talked about that study a bit today. On Friday, in Michaela's educational presentation, she talked about HIT training, high intensity interval training, and she talked a little bit more about the background and why it's beneficial. She talked about this study a little bit and gave some details, but I was telling everyone that I'm planning on doing a little bit of a deeper dive into this study and looking kind of even at more details from it so that we can be inspired by that and also make sure that the exercise we're doing is as similar as possible to what they were doing in this study. The cool things are, one is that the exercise did happen online because it was during COVID. So that's kind of cool because I would say in-person exercise is a little more clear in terms of beneficial. Like we can watch people, we know they're working out hard. People rise to the occasion when someone's watching them, move and exercise. But online, it's a little bit different. So it's very cool to see that that is possible online. And they did high intensity functional intervals, which I would say is most like our HIT class or our boxing class, and that we're doing intervals like, okay, we're going to push really hard, get our heart rate up. Now we're going to work on something functional. Now we're going to get our heart rate up again. So that kind of interval training, and it was about the same duration. They had like 5 or so minutes of warm up and cool down and about 30 minutes of high intensity. So that's similar duration to our classes. Michaela does talk about how when it comes to like high intensity interval training, that can be done like in our cardio class. We do HIIT, we do intervals of faster and slower and more resistance. So it can be done on a bike or treadmill, or it can be done in a HIIT class or in a boxing class. So there's, multiple classes that we can be doing that type of high intensity exercise, which is also nice because it keeps things interesting. And some people may notice if they're measuring with heart rate, they might say, I get my heart rate up higher in a cardio class than a HIIT class, or some people might get it higher in a HIIT class than a cardio class. So that's one thing, is for each person, we want to help them find, what's the exercise that really helps them achieve that high heart rate as well, since that just over and over and over, that's what the research is pointing us to, is that high intensity is important.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Diana, do you have another question?
Yeah, you'll probably do this anyway, but when you are looking at the article for your deep dive, if you can determine if there's more benefit in the cardio with, the high intensity on the bicycle or the treadmill versus the high intensity, that's the more freestanding, I'd be interested in knowing if one is better than the other or if they're both the same.
Yeah, I already know, even without doing the deep dive, this article, I don't think would answer that question. We don't know. There has not been a study where it does like a head to head. That's really the only way I think they'd be able to figure that out. So far, studies have either looked at aerobic exercise on a bike or treadmill. I mean, those are even separate. Like one study is a bike, one study is a treadmill, one study is this high intensity functional intervals. So there's yet to be a study, to my knowledge, that compares the two. My professional inkling is that they are both beneficial in different ways. So for one, I think that, like I was saying, finding the form of exercise where you can get the highest heart rate, I think is one piece that's important. So for someone, if they said, in a cardio class, I'm able to get my heart rate higher, I'd say we definitely want to make sure that cardio is happening, at least maybe 2 times a week. And then high intensity functional intervals, if you don't get your heart rate quite as high, but you're still working out, and you're working on all these skills and functional things, that is very important. But saying that one's like more or less important would be nearly impossible to determine. And I think it depends on the person. So I think like one of the main things is trying to do high intensity. So what exercise helps you do high intensity? And then the variety, and making sure that you do have some exercise that's functional. I don't think that anyone should be doing just machines. You don't think anybody should just be doing 3 to 4 days on a bike or on a treadmill. I think that the variety of using pieces of equipment in some cases, and also doing things off the equipment that's more functional, is really would be the best.
And what you're doing will evolve over time as your fitness level increases, right? Because at one point I felt like pickleball was enough for me to call it high intensity. And after a while I was like, this isn't really doing it. And so now I'm doing the high intensity training. We should only be doing it 3 or 4 times a week and giving our bodies time to recover in between the high intensities or the cardios.
It depends a little bit. If you're actually getting to 80%, you may feel like you need some days between. I think the type of exercise that you really need to rest between is strength training. If you're doing heavy strength training, when you're doing heavy strength training, it actually is causing damage to your muscles, and then it's your muscles rebuilding is what causes you to get stronger. So you cannot do heavy strength training with the same muscle groups multiple days in a row. But when it comes to high intensity aerobic, there isn't an actual physical reason why you can't do that multiple days in a row or multiple days of the week.
Okay.
I do think that just practically, it makes sense to have variability in the intensity of exercise, that doing a high intensity day and then maybe doing a day that's more moderate intensity with, power moves. I think power moves are very restorative and kind of help you feel good and move well so that you can exercise at a high intensity. But that's a little bit more dependent on the person. And some people, like when Jimmy Choi came on, he does high intensity aerobic exercise every day and he feels better doing it every day. But some people say that, yeah, when I do it one day, like I'm fatigued, I need a day to recover. So you've got to listen to your body. I think aiming for 3 to 4 days a week is great. But more than that is not necessarily a bad thing. Or it's not something that we would say you can't do it. But yeah, we want to kind of check in. And that is also something, the better in shape you get, you may be more interested, like you may feel better doing more higher intensity. Like I think there's a threshold that you cross fitness wise where you don't feel as tired or like you have to recover as much. You actually feel better with that high intensity exercise, like Jimmy Choi. And that's where there is research separate from this study, but there's a research study that was using cycling that actually showed that people, when they do aerobic exercise, produce more dopamine. So it could be that once you get to a certain fitness level, that you really do feel better if you do some of that exercise each day because you're actually producing more dopamine. Whereas if you only did it 3 or 4 days of the week, it might be that some days you're producing more and some days you're producing a little less, and that could even like impact your medications a bit or impact how you feel. So I think
true.
it's great.
Stationary bicycles too, not just outside bicycles, but the study would include stationary bicycling.
The studies have only been on stationary bicycles.
Okay.
So yeah, outdoor cycling is, again, I would say just there's way too many factors that make it very difficult to do in a research study. Most people are not experienced cyclists. You can't just take someone, who's in their 60s and diagnosed with Parkinson's and say, go ride on the road. There's bike fitting and shoes and traffic and safety. So none of the studies on cycling have done outdoor cycling. It has all been on stationary bikes.
Okay, cool.
And stationary bikes it's something that is relatively accessible. Most people between a senior center, a YMCA, a 24-hour fitness, have access to a recumbent or an upright bike. And it's quite a safe piece of equipment, even if someone does have some change in their balance or feels lightheaded or dizzy. Sometimes bikes are still often a very safe piece of equipment to use. And then you can get a really good workout. So yeah, so multiple studies have happened and it's all been on stationary bikes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for walking, the high intensity ones have been on treadmills. There have been overground walking studies as well, but they tend to be more moderate intensity because same thing, like to really get your heart rate up, you often have to walk fast or increase the incline. So being on a treadmill allows you to kind of modify the parameters a little bit more to help you work hard. Whereas if you're walking outside, again, there's distractions, there's the sidewalk, there's obstacles, there's people, there's things happening. And when you're distracted, it kind of slows most of us down. And you have to be like constantly like, I gotta walk as fast as I can. And again, there's going to be kind of more of a safety aspect to walking outside too, because if you're really trying to push it and walk fast, and then there's a stick or a rock or, the curb, or a crack in the sidewalk, then you may not see it if you're really pushing it and trying to walk fast. So the treadmill is a more controlled environment that's kind of easier. And for most studies, they have to have a protocol. You're going to go exactly this long. We want your heart rate to get in this zone. And so it's a little bit easier to kind of make that happen with a piece of equipment and progress it over time than it is outside with all the variables that happen in the real world. Yeah, great questions though. All right. Any other questions? Or does anybody have any requests or suggestions for classes? Of course, as we learn more and if we get more details about this, if there is something that's different than what we're doing in classes, we will make updates and changes. That's what new research coming out is for.
I was glad you knew about that speaker on service dogs because I had seen it, but I didn't know who it was or where it was. That recording is apparently also available online for us to review because I missed the actual person speaking. But you said you have their name and you can contact them.
Yep. Yeah. So I already looked up the organization, but there is a video with PMD Alliance. I think it was just last week that they had the meeting. And so if you Google PMD Alliance service dogs, you'll likely find that YouTube video. But yeah, I like to share videos, but also whenever possible, I like to invite someone to come, so that people can actually get the opportunity to ask questions. Because with our meetings, they tend to be a little bit smaller. PMD Alliance may have like hundreds of people on the meeting and you don't necessarily get a chance to ask questions. So whenever possible, I like to invite someone to come and meet with us so that we have the opportunity to ask questions too. All righty. Well, thank you all so much for joining today. Feel free to email anytime if you have any other questions or thoughts, and I will let you all know when I'm ready to talk about this article in more depth. And if anybody signs up for the Beat Parkinson's Today program and finds out any information that you want to share with us, please let me know.
Thank you, Claire.
All right. You're welcome. Have a great day. I'll see you all soon.